Hello and welcome to this short presentation. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the business show, but until then, I'd like to give you some ideas on why you may be struggling to increase your sales and how you can fix it. I'm Phil Sayers, founder of Pro10 Sales Development. I've been selling and managing sales teams for more than 30 years. It's what I do, it's what I enjoy. And I get as much pleasure from helping salespeople become successful as I ever did from closing sales, whether they were worth a few £100 or over £1 million. Nowadays, I spend most of my time helping business owners and salespeople from small businesses learn techniques and develop skills that help them become more effective at selling and coaching them to become more successful and ultimately build a better business. I'm also a published author. My book, It's All About the Value, is an introduction for business owners and salespeople who perhaps haven't had any formal sales training but want to learn new skills or polish existing skills. I want to start with a question. What are we selling? Now, it might sound like a stupid question, but let's look at a few examples. So if I were to ask an accountant what they sell, they'll probably suggest that they're selling bookkeeping services, tax returns, annual accounts, and payroll services. And if I were to ask an office cleaning business, they'd probably talk about dusting, vacuuming, emptying bins, cleaning staff, toilets, and washrooms. And if I were to ask a software development company, they might talk about their invoicing software and how it reduces human errors and enables the user to automatically send out invoices by email instead of printing and posting them. Now that's all well and good, but is it really the full story? In actual fact, it's far from the real story, and here's why. What's important to understand is that when customers and prospects think about buying anything, they already have an idea of what they want. Since the advent of the internet, it's become so much easier to research anything before you buy, which means that when potential customers first approach us, or when we approach them and they show some interest in what we offer, it's almost certain that they already have a view as to what it is they want or don't want. And that view is likely to be pretty well established and fixed. It's effectively their shopping list. However, there may be other things that you offer that they could really benefit from, their additional needs. It's just that they either haven't thought of them or that they haven't yet made a connection between what they need and what it is we offer. So the starting point for us to consider is, what are the problems that our customers might have that we can help them solve? How can we help the prospect recognize that what they actually need may be more than what they already know that they want? So for our accountant, their typical client already recognizes that they don't know how to generate a tax return or a set of annual accounts. They may also fear getting a letter from the tax authorities if they've made a mistake on their tax return paperwork. That's why when they start looking for an accountant, they'll have a shopping list of wants that they think the accountant can address for them. And typically it's bookkeeping, tax returns, year-end accounts, and payroll services. For an office cleaning services business, their clients may already realize that they don't have the manpower or the necessary equipment to sort out messy offices, or they may realize that they need to keep the washrooms clean. And for our software development business, their clients may already accept that they need to reduce the number of manual errors that appear on invoices they currently create in a spreadsheet, or that they need to find a way of reducing the number of invoices that apparently get lost in the post and then don't get paid on time, or worse still, at all. Now, all of these things we've just highlighted are easy to understand, and they go part way to building a case for the solutions that we as salespeople and suppliers can offer. But it's not the full picture. These are just the customer wants. What we really have to do is identify the additional customer needs, those things that, if addressed, could really help the customer in ways that they hadn't previously considered. So when we think about all of the things that a customer or prospect could possibly ever know, there are things that they know that they know. They know their customers, they know their products, they know their pricing structure, or at least I hope they do. But there are also things that they don't know. They know how to prepare a set of annual accounts. They know that they don't know how to properly clean the washrooms, or they know that they don't know how to write effective invoicing software. But most importantly, there are things that they don't know that they don't know. This isn't a criticism of them at all. It's simply that their understanding of the full complexity of problems that they may be facing is incomplete. So they haven't yet made the link between what they actually need compared to what they know that they want. So when we consider our accountant's prospect, they may not know that restructuring their debt could have a huge impact on their profitability and their cash flow. And the potential customer talking to our office cleaning company may not realize that as well as addressing the untidy office, there may be health and safety issues that need addressing, or that an untidy office could damage their reputation with visiting customers. And our invoicing software prospect may not have recognized that automating the process of raising invoices, as well as eliminating errors and avoiding invoices being lost in the post, could also save them 3 hours of admin time every week. And what could they do with that extra 3 hours of time? Helping a prospect understand what they don't know is arguably the single most effective skill you can learn in developing yourself as a salesperson. Instead of using the word selling, think of it more as helping. We're helping the prospect clarify their thoughts about what issues they have in their world, and therefore what they need to address those issues or concerns. We've helped them understand what they need, as well as what they already knew that they wanted. So when you think about what you provide to your customers, it's essential to remember that your value is not what you do, it's why you do it. The accountant's value is not the annual accounts and the tax returns, it's the tax savings they find and the removal of stress worrying about tax letters arriving in the mail. It's the family holiday that the client can now afford because of those tax savings. For our office cleaner, the value is not just the tidy office, it's the compliance with health and safety laws, or it's the enhanced company image. And for our invoicing software company, the value isn't the removal of invoicing errors or invoices lost in the post, it's the revenue that the client retains through not losing customers, or it's the extra revenue they can generate from spending 3 more hours a week selling. So remember, your value is not what you do, it's why you do it. So how do you start to articulate that value to potential customers? Well, we could just say, I sell invoicing software. And that's true, of course. But will it get the reaction we want, or will it just receive a bored expression? What we really need is a short introduction that explains our value, something that might just trigger some interest in the prospect's mind and make them want to explore more. So what we need is a structured approach to creating a really effective elevator pitch that will help us get the attention of potential customers and make them want to learn more. So we start with a statement, our customers find that, and then explain 1 or 2 typical problems that our other customers face. Clearly we don't list every problem they could be facing, we've only got a limited amount of time, so maybe pick the top 1 or 2. Next we say, which means that, and then describe the typical costs or impacts that are associated with these problems. Again, keep it brief and to the point. And then we say, by working with us, clients have been able to, and then describe the solutions we provide to these problems. And finally, we'll say, resulting in, and then describe the payoff, the true commercial value that we provide. Now, the whole statement should take no more than 20 seconds, so we need to be really careful about how much detail we put in, but there needs to be enough information to make it attention-grabbing. If we get it right, we'll engage with the prospect, but more importantly, we'll trigger their interest in wanting to find out more. Now, my training programs talk a great deal about the importance of having a structured approach to selling, so that it becomes second nature and we have a way of understanding at any time where we are in that process. So it shouldn't come as a big surprise that the first thing we need to do for our meetings is to prepare. We need to gather the basic ingredients that we'll use during the discussion. So how do we prepare? Well, the obvious starting point is to take a look at the customer's website. What do they do? What do they sell? Who do they sell it to? What problems do they solve for their customers? Is anything changing in the business? Are there any interesting news items? Have they won any big contracts or awards? Who are the key people within the organization? All of this information gives us an overview of their business and might well trigger some thoughts as to how we might want to position our product or service. Next, we can obviously take a look at the LinkedIn profile of the individuals that we're going to be talking to. What's their role and what are they responsible for doing? How long have they worked there? Have they made any interesting LinkedIn postings that relate to issues you may be able to solve? So what we now need now is a structured approach that helps us uncover the customer needs in order to build the most compelling value that we can offer to the prospect. And that's where epic selling comes in. Epic selling gives us a structured approach we can use for meetings with prospects that will help us uncover problems, clarify the impact of these problems, and then strongly position our value. Once you get to know the epic selling approach, it will help you give your prospect meetings a direction. You'll be able to instantly understand where you are in the process and therefore what the next step should be, and ultimately it will make your sales activities much more effective. And there are 4 stages to the epic selling process. E stands for environment. We want to understand what's happening in the prospect's world, both their business world, but also their personal world. Remember that for most business owners, the business is really a means to achieving some form of personal goal, whether that's earnings, saving for retirement, leaving a legacy for their family, or even simply getting a better work-life balance. The more we understand about their individual environment, the more likely we are to find opportunities to help them. P stands for problems. By talking through what's happening in the prospect's environment, we can start to uncover problems that they may be facing, some of which they'll be aware of, some of which they won't. I stands for impact, and we need to help the prospect truly understand what the impact will be on the business and them personally if they don't fix the problems that we've identified. Now, the impact might be financial in nature, but it might also be personal in nature. And finally, C stands for confirm. Given the problems we've identified and the impact of not solving these problems, we need to confirm with the prospect that they now have an extended list of needs that they have to address within a reasonable short time frame. So these are the 4 stages we'll go through during the initial meeting or call with the client: environment, problem, impact, and confirm. And of course, the epic selling approach provides you with a structure you can use to guide and direct your sales calls and meetings, but it does rely on you being able to come up with the right questions to ask. Over time, this gets easier, but there are definitely steps you can take in the short term to help with this, not least the fact that we can draw up a list of common questions we could apply to many of our meetings. And once we've identified the customer needs, we can then talk about the value that we offer, how we're helping the customer address the impact of these problems we identified earlier, and delivering the payoff, the real value that they want. Now, hopefully they'll be so delighted that they'll want to buy immediately. But it isn't always that easy, is it? Sometimes customers will raise objections. And there are 4 common types of objection that you'll come across, and I'm sure you won't be surprised to see that the first, and arguably the most common objection, relates to price or risk. And the classic response is, it's too expensive, or we don't have any budget this year. The second objection type relates to quality of services or functionality. You'll hear things like, your product doesn't do X, or I need 24/7 support. The third type of objection relates to trust or relationships. Now, the prospect is unlikely to come straight out and say, I don't trust you, but you might hear things like, we've been working with our existing supplier for years now and they do a great job. And the fourth and final type is called the stall objection. The prospect won't say no, but they'll play for time. Typical examples might be, I need to talk to a colleague, or let me get back to you. Now, it's all well and good understanding and recognizing the different types of objection we might encounter, but how should we actually react when our prospect comes up with a reason not to place an order? So here's another tool that we can use to help us handle objections as they arise. And this one is another 4-letter acronym we call AQUA. And firstly, we acknowledge exactly how the prospect is thinking. Then we question what they mean. Next, we make sure we really understand the objection and demonstrate this by paraphrasing what the prospect has said. And then, and only then, we provide an answer. So we know that when we position our value to a prospect, show in our own minds that we've addressed their wants and needs, we can either close the sale or handle an objection or two, but don't panic if the process doesn't seem to be seamless. And it's really common to try and close the sale and be faced with an objection which you successfully address, and then try and close again, only to be faced with a new objection, and so on. So just be patient and continue to try and close the sale and use the Aqua model until you get to the end of the process, which will either be an agreement to place an order, or you'll conclude that you're never going to get this one over the line. And there's nothing wrong if that's the conclusion you come to. Once we've gained agreement in principle with the prospect, we need to send a proposal. And unless the prospect replies immediately and sends us their order, you must follow up. In fact, at every stage of the sales process, we should be following up. For many of us, the sales cycle can be quite drawn out, and we'll have multiple calls or meetings with our prospects before we even get to the point of positioning our value, handling objections, and closing. Now, there's some widely read research in the sales arena that looked at how salespeople followed up with their prospects. And what the research found was that 48% of salespeople never follow up with a prospect, which personally I find staggering. They're just expecting or hoping that the prospect will respond. And 44% of salespeople only follow up once. So 92% of salespeople are either not following up or are only following up once. And yet 80% of sales are made on the fifth or subsequent contact, which means that 92% of salespeople are missing out on as much as 80% of their sales opportunities. Wow. Now, I don't know about you, but I know I wouldn't want to be missing out on that number of opportunities simply for the lack of a bit of effort. So it's crucially important to follow up with prospects, and there's a golden rule I'd suggest you stick to, and that's what I call BAM-FAM. So book a meeting from a meeting. In other words, every time you meet with or talk to a prospect, try wherever possible to confirm a date and time for your next contact. Doing this will save you a huge amount of time chasing contacts, but equally importantly, it will also reinforce in the mind of the prospect that they've made a commitment to move things forward one step at a time. Now, getting people to agree to a meeting is only part of the process. We need to have lots of conversations with prospects. And only some of these will become leads. And only some of these leads will generate opportunities that we can quantify. And not all of these opportunities will give conceptual agreement for us to submit a proposal. And of course, not all of these proposals will result in actual sales. So what we need to understand is that if we have a sales target that we're aiming to achieve, how many proposals do we need to submit in order to generate the sales we need? And how many opportunities do we need to find in order to get conceptual agreement to submit a proposal? And so on until we understand how many prospects we need to be talking to in the first instance. Which means that we need to effectively work backwards from our sales target to then calculate how much activity is required to fill the sales funnel and work those prospects through the various stages of our sales cycle to finally deliver the required sales revenue at the end. So if we want to improve our results, we can certainly put more activity in place, but there are only so many hours in the day. And if, like me, you're running a business as well as selling, you have to allocate your available time to the various functions you need to perform. So the alternative way of improving results is to improve the quality of our efforts. Improving our sales skills will help us convert more prospects into leads, more leads into opportunities, more opportunities into proposals, and more proposals into sales. Now, as you can imagine, I've worked with hundreds of businesses, and there are 5 common mistakes I see time and time again. The first is that businesses assume that the prospect knows what they need. They rarely do. They may well know what they want, but often there are other things that could deliver additional value to them, but it's just that they aren't aware of it yet. Secondly, they assume that customers and prospects really understand their true value. How can they if they don't know everything that they need and if we don't fully explain our value to them. And thirdly, they fail to differentiate themselves from the competition. The more we can do this, the more we can stand out from the crowd and avoid being seen as someone who simply sells a commodity item or service, something where the only difference between potential suppliers is the price. And fourthly, they think that pitching is the same as selling. Now, you and I know that that's not true. A tell-sell approach isn't especially effective. It's really impersonal and it's unprofessional. And we all want to be professional, don't we? And finally, some businesses believe that they don't need to sell, that their product or service is so fantastic that customers will flock to their door and buy as much as they can produce. If we don't sell, if we don't uncover problems that we can solve, if we don't position the real value of what we deliver, if we don't overcome objections and close the sale, we're leaving money on the table. We're not doing our job and we're not being professional salespeople. So what we've covered today is a snapshot of some of the techniques we can use to improve how we sell and ultimately build better results. But there's not enough time here to go into the detail of how we can put these techniques into practice within each of our individual businesses. So if you'd like to learn more, we have an online on-demand sales skill training program called Epic Selling. There are 6 modules which you can buy individually or as a full package. And these modules include defining your value and messaging, who to sell to and where to find them, prospect and customer meetings, closing, handling objections and effective proposals, negotiation techniques, and finally sales activity. Now, the program will require a little of your time and effort in thinking how to put the techniques we cover into practice. But if you follow the suggested processes, you'll dramatically increase your sales success, which is what we all want, isn't it? And details of the program are, of course, available on the website. Thank you all for your time today. I hope you found it useful, and I look forward to meeting you at the business show. And of course, in the meantime, if you'd like to have an exploratory discussion at no cost around what you're struggling with and how we might be able to help you, then please get in touch.